Houston Texans, the last of the AFC South teams here, and a team coming off a bit of a tough year, but not one that I think anyone was surprised about. They did, however, do a good job finding some talent on this roster and ended up 4-13, which, for what they were going into it with, maybe isn't the worst thing in the world. And more importantly, they found something at quarterback, which we'll talk about as we go forward here. But these are the losses from that roster, and obviously, when you're a team as bad as this team was, you're not going to be too complain too much about guys leaving the roster unless they're really good, and no one on this list, frankly, matters. So, not too bad of a job there as far as retaining. Well, there's one notable exception to that being Deshaun Watson, but I'm not going to talk about that here. It's not that big of a loss, nor near as much as they think it might be, even on the football field. Additions wise, they're. Sure, they could have done better. I think this team is still probably pretty clearly in a rebuilding and or talent building phase as far as going to get better in the future as opposed to trying to compete right now. But there are some okay players on this list to be sure. So this is the draft class. Now this is the much more important part of the offseason here for them. Now, with rookies, I don't talk about how good they are until they actually play on a football field because basically everybody's wrong. And we'll see really quick if they are good, if they can play. But for now, a lot of talent, theoretically, at the very least, on this team. So this is the offense, right? And I always like to start with the run game, get that out of the way. It is less important, obviously, but it's also quicker to talk about and something we can just kind of get through. So can this offensive line run block? Well, individually, it's not something I'm super excited about, but I don't think it's a disaster. Tunsil, back from injury this year, he's just kind of a whatever guy as far as a downhill run blocker. He's a lot more skilled going backwards in pass protection, which we'll talk about, but he's kind of whatever. Kenyon Green is a rookie. Maybe he's good, maybe he's not. Who knows? Justin Britt, player who he definitely had a better year last year than many of his previous, but he's still a guy who's kind of weak, not really athletic, doesn't really offer positives, just kind of does what he's supposed to do in most cases. Titus Howard, I'm going to skip over right guard real quick. I love Titus Howard. They finally realized he should have been starting a tackle. He should have been since his rookie year. What they were doing was kind of ridiculous, but whatever. He's there now, and they realize he's good. He was really good last year. That's awesome for them. At the right guard spot, so Max Sharping and AJ Cann. One of those guys is good, or is okay. One of them is very much not okay. Max Sharping is fine last year. He is fairly similar to Justin Britt in that he doesn't really add a ton to run plays. He doesn't really, shove guys out of the way, get crazy engagement on the next level, anything like that, but he's fine. AJ Cann, though, coming over from the Jaguars, who right now, for some inexplicable reason, is, I think, slated to start. I pretty much guarantee that won't last. He's just bad. He was better last year for the Jaguars than he'd been previously in his career. But previously in his career, he'd be one of the absolute worst linemen in football, and I don't expect that that's a permanent change that we've seen here. The guy just gets out-quicked constantly. He is horrible balance. He ends up on his ass almost every other play. Again, especially prior to last year, and he's just not very good. So, as a whole, though, you can get away with it in a run game. I think they're okay. Their scheme is kind of whatever, but this team should be able to run the ball at least to a meh extent, and sometimes that's all you need. More importantly, let's talk about the pass game. A lot more fun, a lot more important. Can this offensive line pass protect? I would actually say yes. Generally, their tackles are good. Laramie Tunsil can absolutely play in that department. Like I already said, I really, really like Titus Howard. Kenyon Green, again, rookies, are they going to be good or are they not? Who knows? But most of the time, first-round rookie guards, at the very least, don't suck, which is something that you can be happy about. There are other spots, whatever. I do think this offensive line can come together. Are they going to struggle with high-end guys? For sure. There are definitely holes to exploit on this team. It's not going to be anything elite, but it is enough to provide space for Davis Mills. So I get to talk about Davis Mills now. I'm actually excited about that. The dude was kind of really good as a rookie, something that I didn't necessarily expect before I went into watching this team, because not a ton of people talked about him. Everybody's freaking out about Mac Jones, all that stuff, who I haven't got to yet, so I'm not going to say for sure Davis Mills was the best rookie last year, but of the ones I've watched, he's definitely the best so far. The dude, he was good. He was very consistently making correct decisions. He actually displayed a good amount of pocket presence as far as being able to step into space and use what was around him in the pocket to create space to throw passes down the field. Like I said, he was rarely wrong as far as the decision he was making. And while sometimes he does have a bit of a lack of arm strength, and he can float up throws into spaces that you probably don't want him to be doing so. It's not like that's A, that big of a problem, or B, happens all that much. So I'm actually really encouraged about him, especially going forward. Now, this year, we're still working in the frames of this offense, right? So I'm going to, statistically, he probably won't be that incredible this year, but I do like him, and I do actually think they have a starting quarterback going forward pretty comfortably. Why do I not think he'd be so statistically good this year? It's because the weapons here. Brandon Cooks is awesome. He's still a play driver. He's somebody who actually consistently gets open. He creates yards after this catch. Brandon Cooks is really, really, really good. He isn't quite, the elite top 10 receiver, the way that like a Devontae Adams, how he's like a one-man offense. Stephon Diggs kind of a one-man offense. Brandon Cooks isn't to that level, but he is really good. Their other guys, though, are more or less just there to run routes. Nico Collins, he was a rookie last year, so maybe you give him a pass. And he was on the field a lot, but he was whatever. It's not like he was actively beating defenses, or making these incredible plays, offering or showing himself to be a higher-end playmaker. He was just kind of on the field, and I don't really expect much more from him because he didn't really show much more. Philip Dorsett did finally find a home here. The dude does belong in an NFL roster. He's a good player as far as somebody who works the sideline pretty well, runs simple routes well. But same thing where he's not going to be adding value to your offense, right? He's just going to be kind of out there doing what he's asked to do. The other guys, Chris Conley's bad. He just doesn't have good hands or whatever. I'm not going to get into too much, even though he might be on the field here. He's just not somebody who gets open, even if it is schemed for him. So I had a big problem with him when he was on the Jaguars, even the Chiefs before that. He has the athleticism once he has the ball, technically, but he just is really bad about getting the ball. Other than that, though, there's just nothing to note here. They're tight ends, Brevin Jordan, Pharaoh Brown, really whatever. Pharaoh Brown is fine, I guess. Brevin Jordan, as a rookie last year, did show a little bit more athleticism, a little bit more ability to be a positive on offense if he, learns a lot of the smaller stuff better, but it's not something I really expect. So as a whole, you're talking about a pretty good quarterback behind a reasonable offensive line throwing to weapons plus Brandon Cooks. And overall, that just doesn't really lead to that much success. It's not a disaster. Like I said, I do think this team has a floor as far as being able to move the ball up and down the field. I don't think that they're going to get smacked by even better defenses. But scoring touchdowns definitely might be, actual touchdowns might be a problem for this team. And sometimes that can really lose you a lot of games in the NFL. So let's talk about their defense next. Last year, obviously not very good. And this year, I wouldn't hope for a whole lot better. So let's start with the run defense. It's kind of bad. It was bad last year. It's going to be kind of bad this year, too. Probably even worse. So the reason why, right, you look at the defensive line, the point of attack first here, and that's kind of already an issue. Their interior defensive lineman, Malik Collins, I do like, absolutely. He's a good penetrator. He's a good player. As a run defender, he is just kind of okay there. He does have some ability to stop plays in the backfield, but it's nothing that's really consistent. He's not going to hold up super strong at the point of attack. Roy Lopez was a later round rookie who did end up playing a decent amount last year, and while he wasn't a disaster, he never really showed anything more than being a fat guy, which, can help if you're surrounded by a lot of really high-end talent, but here that's obviously not really the case, so whatever. Ross Blacklock, absolute disappointment as a really high pick a couple of years ago. The dude just doesn't really do useful things on a football field. Very, very occasionally, yeah, he does show the athleticism that got him drafted that high. He does beat some bad interior linemen and get into the backfield, but it's really rare, and frankly, even when he doesn't, it's not like he's doing it cleanly in a way that disrupts the offense. In a way that they can't run whatever play they were trying to. It's just kind of a minor inconvenience most of the time. So whatever. Thomas Booker is a rookie. Michael Duenfor, he played a really small amount of snaps last year. If anybody actually, I think, has a chance to step up and be good here, it's him. He actually did show a little bit as far as being somebody who could beat still more bad offensive linemen, but do something at least. And then on the edges, there's a lot of names here that people are probably familiar with, and I wouldn't say individually any of them are particularly bad. The problem is that in the run game, a lot of times, being disciplined, especially anymore, isn't necessarily good enough. These teams are so smart about the way they run the ball, the way they create multiple options for their running backs, on the front side and back side, as far as hitting big plays and having everybody in the offense doing useful things blocking instead of just kind of running the ball straight forward the way that they used to do. That you need somebody who's affecting the offense anymore. You need somebody who's actually stopping the play as opposed to just letting the offense run into a brick wall. And that's where I think this team really runs into issues, especially on the edge. So Jonathan Grenard was way better than I think a lot of people expected last year, for sure. And he is decent. I'm not going to talk badly about him. But as a run defender, while he is strong, and I think he plays the edge okay, it's nothing special. Jerry Hughes has been a veteran presence for the Bills for a long time, and I do like him as a pass rusher. But he's not super strong himself, and he's more just a kind of being in the right place. Mario Addison, same thing, but also not a good pass rusher. Derek Rivers, whatever. Rasheem Green also can play the edge okay, but it's nothing that's really going to affect the defense, or affect the offense, sorry. And then these linebackers just aren't good enough to make up for that stuff. Christian Kirksey is almost the definition of a bang average middle linebacker. He's fine. He can be on a field again if he's especially surrounded by a lot better players. He can be a reasonable presence, but just not somebody who's going to make a lot of plays. Garrett Waller was okay as a rookie. He did show some explosion towards the line of scrimmage, a little bit of playmaking that I am talking about, but nothing that I'm ready to say, oh, he's that dude. With that, Christian Harris is a rookie, third-round rookie, and maybe he's good, but I doubt it, especially rookie linebacker. And those other guys, Neville Hewitt's bad, Camille Grugier-Hill is bad. Neither of them individually horrible snap to snap, but over the course of a season will make enough mistakes, just not get to plays in the correct way enough times that they end up being negatives for your defense. So the run defense is kind of bad. And is the pass defense any better? Well, let's talk about it. So, again, pass rush first. Is it there? Not really. It's not horrible, but it's definitely in the very, very bottom tier in the NFL. I mean, Malik Collins, again, is more or less that dude on this team, but he's like a mid-tier interior penetrator, and that's not good enough really to be your more or less number one pass rusher. The rest of the guys in the middle are nothing. On the edge, again, Grenard was better than people thought last year, and I do think he's decent, especially as a rotational guy. He can offer a point of pressure, but it's nothing special. He's not going to consistently beat offensive tackles cleanly and really affect the quarterback. So yeah, while on worse offenses where they're holding the ball longer, he'll get home, and I think he's okay. It's nothing that, again, you're game planning for spectacularly. Jerry Hughes, especially at his age at this point, I'm worried that he's going to really offer a ton. I have liked him for a long time as a speed rusher. I do think he still has that, but nothing great. They do bring in Obo Okoronkwo, who's a guy I like as well, but a player on the Rams who has profited from their good scheme, Aaron Donald, all that stuff, and is able to beat guys one-on-one over the course of a play fine. He was one of their better edge rushers, and that is the case here too. It's just, right, being one of the team's better edge rushers when the edge rushers are bad isn't necessarily a huge compliment. It doesn't really mean that much as far as how they affect an offense. The pass rush, not really there. So then on the back end, can they be shut down? And very, very, very likely the answer is absolutely not here, mostly just because you're starting two rookies. Yes, sometimes rookies are good. That is absolutely the case, and that might be the case here. It is, however, very unlikely, and most of the time when that is the case, it's because they're surrounded by players who are making them look a lot better than they are right when they get into the NFL. Here, again, obviously, very much not the case. So, the corners, Derek Stingley Jr., he was awesome in college, and I've been a big fan of him for a long time. That's not really meaningful, though, which is why I don't like to talk about rookies. Steven Nelson, Fabian Moreau, two players I think are positives on the defense. Fabian Moreau should have been playing more over the last couple years, but neither of them really are stoppers. They're both guys, and this is a theme of this team too. They're just both guys who do what you tell them to do, aren't going to get burned too bad most of the time, and have the athleticism to at least stick with mid-tier receivers in a way that helps your defense. Fabian Moreau especially, I think he probably is even a little bit better than that, but that only gets you so far. And at safety, Jalen Petrie, who knows? Eric Murray is bad, though, so you can kind of count on at least one bad spot in the secondary. And their backups, I do like Terrence Brooks as a linebacker hybrid. MJ Stewart, I think, did play pretty well on the Browns, but neither guys who are high-end starters. And then in the slot, Desmond King, probably the best player on this defense. He's a decent slot corner. Probably better than decent, but he's not this he's not Bryce Callahan. He's not K'Waun Williams. He's not somebody at the very, very top of that. So, Can he be that dude and lead this defense to like a ton of success? Very, very unlikely. So what do you get as a defense with the whole, based on what we talked about? It's just not good because you have nobody here that like matters. And maybe Lovie Smith, the new head coach, comes in and gets the scheme perfectly and everybody works together amazingly. But I would be shocked if that happens. So then you're kind of depending on basically all three of these high pick rookies being really, really good right away. And again, possible, sure, likely, very much not. So this defense is probably looking for a really, really another tough year. And with the schedule, that's kind of an issue because especially in the first half of the schedule, you're running into a ton of teams that are frankly probably just going to run this defense over. And while I do like the offense enough to think they have a floor, like I said, they're not like going to be killing people. So you're going to run into issues where they just can't keep up a lot of times. And that really extends, I said the front half of the season, but that really extends kind of through the whole thing. There are, matchups here. Maybe the Steelers can handle the Jags offense. Yeah, maybe they should be able to handle the Giants offense. Sure. That's 3 games, out of 17. And overall, despite I do think they have the quarterback, I do think they're on the right track. They're probably just going to be weighed down by not enough playmakers combined with a bad defense. So that's the Texans for this year. Again, I think they're on the right track, but not great. Not super excited for this one.